Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special webinar. I'm humbled by the fact that so many of the people who have applied the concepts in the value formula have joined us today, and I think you're going to enjoy hearing from these people. I know I certainly did, and I look forward to any questions you may have at the end of this. So let's go ahead and, if we can, jump to the next screen here and kind of talk a little bit about what we're going to be doing today. Okie doke. We'll we'll get rolling here in a couple of seconds. All right. I always like to start by putting first things first and thanking you for taking your time to attend either the live session right now or the recorded session that we're going to be sharing after we're all done today. So we can jump to the next slide here. So thank you again for attending. So some housekeeping to start with. These slides and case studies are going to be sent to you after the call. This webinar is also going to be on demand for you to share, to watch again if you choose to, or to watch or share with others. And you can ask questions during the webinar using the Q&A tab at the bottom of the screen. One of the reasons why we choose Zoom is because most people are very familiar with it. So feel free to use that. Questions that we don't answer during the webinar, at the end of the webinar, will be sent after we get done today. So let's jump to the next screen here. So brief introduction about myself. I really want to stress this is not about me. It's about the folks who are going to be sharing their experiences. But I've worked at a lot of different companies, so I come by this honestly. I helped start a National Industry Association, been involved with International Association. I received a couple of Lifetime Achievement Awards, spoken around the world at various different conferences, various different countries. I started a company a few years ago called Edify ITSM, and I like the word edify because it means inspiring, learning, educating. I've been married to the same lovely lady for over 40 years, almost going on 45 now, and the father to TJ, Brian, and Bridget, I'm very proud of. So go to jump to the next one here. And okay, so we're going to start with a real quick little video that I put together some time ago about the value formula and the workshop associated with it. And then we're going to introduce the extended Edify ITSM team, folks that I enjoy really working with and getting to know. Ed Su, who is the global field CTO, Chief Technology Officer at Lenovo. He's a keynote speaker, and he has kicked off some workshops that he and I have done together. Colin Davis is the founder and owner of First Principles Coaching, and Colin is a great member of this extended team from the standpoint that he can continue after a workshop or after working with a customer, can help with coaching and works on just has some great experience in that area. The folks we're going to be talking to today are Jim Goodman, who is a manager of technical support at AllaFiber, TJ or Tammy Martinez, team manager at University of New Mexico. Joe Backus is the founder and CEO of BLA Studios. John Collum is the founder and CEO of Northcraft Analytics, and Corey Kite is a leader at Penn State University. So I'll give you a little bit more information about them as we go into their individual interviews. And then we'll wrap up and have questions and answers. So next slide here is about a quick overview of the value formula. So I'm going to drop off for a second. We're going to play the video, and then we'll come back and go into a little bit more detail. Little technical difficulty on the sound, so hopefully we get that work. Nope.
Formula Workshop can be a stimulating catalyst to help you maximize your value by, number one, helping you understand and increase your internal resources and capabilities. Number two, help you use those internal resources and capabilities more efficiently and more effectively. And number three, helping you discover and leverage untapped external resources and capabilities. The value formula itself is a compilation of pragmatic, proven, and accessible ideas and principles focused on the concept of value. They are defined and described within 5 distinct components: vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, and execution. These 5 components are structured within the value formula model, illustrated in such a way to show their interactive and interdependent nature. Your value journey starts with crafting your vision. Through the workshop session on vision, you will learn how to craft an effective, powerful, future-based vision statement to motivate and provide internal direction, answering the critical question, where is our organization going? The second workshop session on alignment is about commitment to the vision. It reinforces the principle that in order to achieve exceptional results, team members must pull in the same direction. Alignment ensures that our organization's best efforts are focused on both our vision and our most important stakeholders, especially our customers. The workshop session on leverage is about discovering those resources and capabilities within facets like people, organizations, tools, processes, and other things, which currently exist outside of your organization, which are ready, willing, and able to assist you in support of alignment to your vision and to augment the realization of increased value. The next workshop session is on uniqueness, and it's all about self-discovery. What are the unique resources and capabilities your organization currently possesses, which makes it special? Can they be increased or enhanced? This session explores the vital nature of people, philosophy, environment, and culture in shaping your uniqueness. Capitalizing on these unique facets lead to the discovery and expression of your unique value proposition. The next session is about execution, the art of getting things done. Execution is the secret sauce, without which no value is generated. This session on execution explores not only barriers which get in the way of getting things done, but introduces and explains a proven process for execution based on the clear understanding that team members need to, first of all, know what the goal is. Secondly, they need to know what they need to do to achieve it. Third, they need to know where they are in relationship to achieve it. And lastly, they need to hold themselves and their teammates accountable for the achievement. The final session of the workshop is about the power of synergy. Success in maximizing value doesn't take some of the parts. It takes the sum of the parts. To put it simply, synergy means 2 heads are better than 1. Synergize about creative cooperation, teamwork, open-mindedness, and the quest to find new solutions to old problems. It doesn't happen on its own. It's a process through which teammates bring their personal experience and expertise to the table in order to produce far better results than they could individually. The concept of synergy is actually powerfully demonstrated through the value formula workshop itself. By discovering things together with your team, which are much less likely to have been discovered individually.
The person I'd like to introduce is a great guy, someone I've really enjoyed getting to know. Ed Su, who is the Global Technology Officer at Lenovo. And Ed shares his insights, he understands trends and perspectives as a master storyteller. And Ed has shared some phenomenal stories with his amazing background. to motivate and inspire executives to understand the dynamics of and challenges of complex business paths. And so I'm going to turn this over right now to Ed to get his insights on things. Ed?
Ken, thanks very much for the nice introduction. I really appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I'm Ed Suhu, and as the Chief Technology Officer at Lenovo, I'm given the opportunity to have very different conversations with clients. And I use the technique of storytelling through the value framework to really put that into effect. And what it does is it raises the sort of like the conversation level to a point where it's easy to understand. People grab onto the concepts much faster, and it actually becomes almost personal. So one of the things I did last year was I gave a keynote in Stanford, and there were 400 attendees of their Graduate School of Business alumnus. And they were from, the usual suspects you would imagine from this School of Business, from Meta to Amazon to Google to Adobe, Salesforce, and it goes on and on. And what I did was I actually did a sort of a session, what I call riff and roll, which was really being almost creative in how I shared the stories and the impact. And many of the conversations post keynote were beyond the pale. And what I mean by that, I was invited by many of them to come to their organization to basically help coach them on how to tell a better story. Because one of the challenges people have, especially in this industry, is that we have a lot of tendencies to rely on technology and some of the babble speak that we rely on in order to help people understand, but which they don't. So what I try to do is use stories, anecdotes, metaphors to change the dialogue, the pace, and more importantly, the effect that it has. Storytelling is not just once upon a time, they live happily ever after. The magic of a story is everything in between.
So, Ed, that is, I think, one of your greatest strengths is the ability to use a story to make a very, very powerful point. And it's something I definitely appreciate about you.
All right, great. Well, so you've heard from Ken, you've heard from Ed, and my name is Colin Davis. I'm the founder of First Principles Coaching. And I've teamed up with this great group of individuals to help you with the follow-up coaching after the workshop. So, in the workshop, you're going to define your value and your top goals, your wildly important goals. And I help you to make sure that gets executed. Basically, right? The fifth part of the value formula, execution. So taking all those great ideas and turning them into reality. And that's really what I specialize in, because as a coach, the most important thing you can do is take your best intentions and your good ideas and turn them into action. And coaching takes ideas and principles and takes the principles of human psychology to make sure that those great ideas, those great principles get turned into action. How do we do that? Well, through accountability, through great questions. I can work with you personally. I can work with your team. My job is to make sure that this stuff becomes reality. So I founded the First Principles Coaching. First of all, because my dad was a small business owner who struggled and who actually his business went under. He failed as a business owner, but then he got himself back up, learned his lessons, and is now very successful. And I saw that process, and I saw the pain that's involved of running a business. So I want to help business owners, and then and their teams as well, because it's a team effort. And then also because I really believe in first principles, the idea that when you're facing chaos, when you're facing the uncertainty that comes with growth, when you're facing all the difficulty and the complexity of business, the most important thing you can do, and the thing that gives you clarity and power, is to focus on the fundamentals, the first principles. So I'd love to tell you a little bit more about that, or work with you and help you to see how you can turn your incredible strategies, incredible ideas, your incredible value, take that and turn it into action.
So good morning, Jim. Jim is manager at Allo Fiber in charge of their support organization, technical support organization, which these days in any organization is pretty challenging. So I had Jim became familiar with the value formula primarily by attending a webinar I had done for an organization. And he shortly after that downloaded the book and has applied some of the concepts and ideas out of the book in his position. And so I have some questions for Jim, and I just want to start with the first one. Basically, is which of the 5 value components, the components that make up the value formula, do you feel appealed to you most, or maybe provided the most benefit to your organization?
So which of the 5 value components appealed to me? That's a tough one. I liked all 5 of them, but I think leverage was the one that stood out the most. And I think that's because when I came to Allo, I discovered Allo had a great foundation already. They had an existing knowledge base. They had an organizational structure that was already had a solid foundation. So we had the key components in place that we needed to prepare to not only build out scope, but also to scale the organization. So leveraging became important. Allo was in a period of hyper growth, and so the things that worked to get us to that point wasn't going to work to take us to the next level. So it became very, very important that that we began to kind of become more intentional in the things that we did, and also the people that we had also had unique talents. They were very entrepreneurial. They were very scrappy, as the department was, as the company was, and the leadership was really bought in. So they were hungry for opportunity. Leadership was ready to do whatever was necessary to scale, and bringing me in, those existing processes were, as I said, a great foundation, a launch point really to everything else that we did. And while every aspect of the acronym value came into play, I would say leverage was definitely the big one for me, because it was a great organization to walk into.
Excellent. It's nice, and that's actually a great point. Is that the concept, the model, with the vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, and execution, are for different organizations at different points. And as you said, the foundation was there. You were wanting to take it beyond that. So what was it that appealed to you about it, or what made, in your mind, the value formula unique in its approach that made it effective for you?
Goodness. Well, the acronym itself, for starters, I'm one of those people that are automatically drawn to frameworks and models because they really do help me visualize information. So coming from a much larger organization, having to build out growth plans and to be able to build forecasts and models that are going to align with the strategic objectives, it sometimes becomes a very time-consuming process. And hearing you speak to the value formula, I think the thing that caught my attention was how simple it was, and how I wish that I had this in many other big discussions and big planning sessions that went for days and days and days and days, and we would end up having to go back, regroup, and meet again over different components that were missing. With the value formula, everything in vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, execution, it was all right there. It's a complete planning framework, if you will, and that's kind of how I use it. Once I became aware of it, I downloaded the book and read your thoughts a little more, with a little more detail than was in the webinar. And I really sat back in my chair and thought, wouldn't this have been great to have had this in the past? So when I came to Allo and was able to sit down with other managers and leaders in the company and start to pick their brains on what they were looking for, it was easy for me to organize those notes in short order because I would just scratch out. I use the Cornell note-taking system. And so in the Q column, I just scratched out VALUE, and I just worked to fill in each of those letters in each meeting to make sure that I came away with the most important things, the vision. What was it that the company wanted to do? What was it that my department leaders wanted to do? What was the vision? What was the objectives? And then also the alignment, looking at, okay, so with my skill sets, the people that I have and the evaluations I've done there, how does this align with the people and the processes that I have? So I was able to evaluate those really in real time, and it set up a really unique situation for being able to ask critical questions and really close the loop on things without having a lot of follow-up discussion and meetings. So again, leveraging, as I already explained, is already about the staff and the processes. Do we have the people and the processes in place to execute this vision? And so it was again, because I did the work of interviewing and reviewing the organization when I started, these conversations became more plug and play. And so having that acronym just listed out on the paper made for a great framework and model. And uniqueness was another point that I would bring up in the conversations. Okay, so what do we have around us in the rest of the organization? Are there unique contributions that each department can bring to the table in executing, if you will, the vision? So what we didn't want to do is we didn't want to become overlapping with other departments. So if there was a particular objective to be met, what we wanted to do was find a unique place where we as a tech support organization could lend value. And then with our partner organizations, we could develop a more horizontal strategy of being able to bring them in and collaborate and partner to meet those objectives. And so that, of course, takes it into execution. So what do we got to do to execute? And as you say, often it is the secret sauce. And we can have all the plans in the world, but if we can't execute, we're not going to get anywhere. And I think that's, again, unique to Allo in a lot of places that I've been in the past. Is it's a company with a can-do attitude and values that they live out every day as an organization, and they recognize that their success is done together as a team, and finding ways to work together as a team is the tough part. And I think leveraging the value formula helps break down those barriers and open up avenues of communication.
You've made some phenomenal points there, Jim. I appreciate that. That's definitely food for thought. One of the things that the value formula talks about is that you don't want to have too many irons in the fire, so to speak, and that you want to come up with your what are called, the wildly important games, or or wildly important goals, rather, or the game changers. And did you find that the structure, the model, the value formula helps you focus on and or accomplish those big things that you set out to accomplish?
Yeah, absolutely. Because, everything starts with vision. And once you have the objectives, everything else starts bolting into it. Mm-hmm. And so I think, being able to not only have vision as in, that big, strategic outlook that everybody talks about, me at more of an operational and tactical level as a middle manager, I need to be able to take that vision out of the abstract in the big picture and be able to drive that down into something that the front line can use to push forward with. And so having a good vision, a good objective is, I think, the root of the plant. You want to get to the flower and the fruit, you've got to have a healthy root. And I think that's part of those conversations that I alluded to in the past when I'm in the last question, to be able to make those conversations as much of a efficient value effort in just that single sitting. So coming away with those clear objectives that we can take and operationalize. Again, I'm working through the acronym on my paper, so I'm operationalizing the abstract in very real time. And so I think that's been the biggest way I've stayed focused.
Very cool. Very cool. So the last question I had here for you is whether or not there's any other point. I mean, you've made some great points as far as to people that are attending this webinar, but is there any other point that you feel you might be important for those who attend the webinar? Kind of maybe a parting shot type of thing.
Goodness, I think the key to success is really if you're in a company that's experiencing a lot of rapid growth, hyper growth, whatever you want to call it, I think it's really important that you keep an eye on scope and you keep an eye on scale and let the two work in balance. We talk a lot about speed and agility. A lot of enterprises use that terminology, which is great. And I think it's important. You need to go fast, but you still need to remain maneuverable in a dynamic market. But from a tactical aspect, you really do have to focus on scope and scale and make sure that you are adding a unique value to the organization as you scale. So if there is something to add, that would be it.
Hi, I want to introduce a friend of mine, but also a former student and again, a person that has applied the concepts and ideas of the value formula. Her name is Tammy Martinez, and she is the director of enterprise IT rather at the University of Customer Support at the University of New Mexico. And I appreciate, first of all, you're being here, Tammy. Thank you very much for taking time out of I know your very busy schedule to be with us today.
Thank you for having me.
And the first question I wanted to ask you, when there's a lot of things that are out there, right? And what do you think of the 5 components of the value formula, the vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, and execution? Which of those 5 seem to appeal to you the most, or to your organization? Or maybe another way to look at it, which one do you think provided the most value to you, at least initially?
Well, hopefully people don't think I'm cheating, but it's actually your first chapter, which talks about value, because part of what you bring up in the first chapter is going above and beyond expectations. Right now, UNM is in a good place with our budget, but previously, I've been there 13 years. We have had times where the budget has been cut and we've been asked to do more with less. And your first chapter really focuses on doing more with less. And, part of that doesn't mean, what I like about that chapter, it doesn't mean that we're going to take on more work and kill ourselves, right? The one thing about doing that is your best people could get burnt out and you can turn around and lose them. And so when it's time to do more with less, you look at value. Like, what value are you bringing to the university? That is what I have to look at. And that was very helpful for me to divine that value and meet these challenges of budget cuts. We're in a point now where our budget's not being expanded, but we are taking on more work. But after attending your webinar and using your book, I've made some strategic decisions that I think helps us deliver value and actually doing more with less.
Very good. Thank you. Thank you for that. So what do you feel makes the value formula unique in its approach? I mean, there's a lot of things that are out there, right?
Yes.
And you found yourself, drawn to this, and you attended the online workshop that I did. But what do you think is unique in its approach, or made it effective for you?
So I think for me, the steps that you lay out in your book to help you define your value, I found, I'm sorry what chapter it is. I actually think it's probably, maybe I highlighted it, but there's one chapter where you give questions to ask. Actually, several chapters at the end. Here's questions that you want to take back to your team. I found that those were very valuable to help answer and have the conversation. I feel like it's an official, or it's a guidebook for official leaders and unofficial, right? We know that, I have leaders on my team that may not be in a management position, but based on their feedback and the work that they do and the initiative that they take, I leaned on those people to work with me in this book to help us identify the value that we create and how we are going to do more with less.
So one of the things that I
Excuse me.
definitely talk about is to focus on those big, or wildly important goals, those game changers. Did it help you? Did the concepts and ideas that you worked with through the value form, did it help you focus on those or better yet, accomplish those wildly important goals and priorities? And if so,
Sorry. Absolutely. Definitely. Actually, I want to say, and I'll just tell you a little bit of what we've done in the past. When I started 13 years ago, our service desk was run by students, which is great. But the challenge is the student is their number one for their academic career. They have homework, they have tests. We had them, if we were lucky, 20 hours a week. When you have someone, they did a fantastic job, the best job that they could. And we had a lot of training and we had many students. But the challenge was always having them be able to retain that knowledge. So when they would have a question, they'd have to go look it up. And so several years ago, faced with do more with less, budget cuts, I actually flipped, based on this book, I actually flipped the student employee budget line, the salary line, to hire 4 full-time employees. And that was a huge challenge and cultural shift, because the university, they like having jobs available for students, but we weren't able to keep up. IT was growing, we were doing more things. And so by shifting that budget, we have now 4 full-time, actually we've added a 5th person, who are there 40 hours a week. They get used to the questions that they're being asked. They know quickly where to find that internal support triage. They're involved in a lot of meetings. They understand what we do at the university. So the value that they bring is being able to answer questions in a timely manner. If you're from the help desk industry, our first contact resolution is at like 90% with our full-time employees. I would never have made that decision to do more with less, because I'm doing more with less. I don't have 20 student employees. I have 4 full-time employees who are delivering the value to the university. I hear from our customers when they call us, number 1, we answer the phone in a timely manner. Number 2, for the most part, our answers are accurate. And number 3, if people are having problems with IT, we're able to solve them. Number 4, when I mentioned that other departments aren't answering the phone, we at least can give them some information. We, again, our value, which is part of our vision to provide accurate, timely support, we actually warm transfer people to other departments. They may need to go to student services. They may need to go to career services. They may need to go to HR. We warm transfer them.
That's very insightful. And this is, I mentioned to Jim earlier, who we talked to, that this has been kind of eye-opening for me as well, because it's interesting and fun to learn how people are taking these ideas and actually getting, as you point out, some value from those. And it's very gratifying to hear that. So one of the things that, the last question I kind of had, lined up here, and I may ask you another question, just sneak it in, is what if there's any other point, with your experience, again, after the workshop and then, getting the book and applying the concepts and ideas from that you feel might be important to those who are attending the webinar, something that, a tip or just an idea or just an insight that you got that you think would be valuable to them?
I would say attending the webinar, reading the book and then discussing it was awesome, and listening to your presentation and your experiences that you share. I know it wasn't in the webinar, but I'm just going to bring up the whole Lexus zero defects that you've talked about. Has been prominent in my mind. But I think the value, I don't want to use the word value. I think where attendees are going to, the icing on top of that cake is interacting with other peers. We're not alone. This book was not written because you had an epiphany that we're all struggling, like no one solved this problem. You've pulled together your experience and these concepts in a very easy manner to read. It's almost like a roadmap for the strategy to build your mission statement. And that's what I really enjoyed with the book, with the webinar. And then, of course, adding in peers who are struggling with the same thing. Sometimes we feel like we're out there alone. We're really not. And I think that really is the benefit that you have brought together with your book and the webinar. And just real quick, I'm almost ready to retire from my job. I plan on getting ready to take my exam to be a social worker. But the concepts of your book, I've actually been able to apply in my internship, my most recent internship, to the point where they've asked me to come back and actually be the program manager, because I help them, understand their mission and communication and process. And okay, based on all of this, here's the value that you're bringing to this organization.
That's very cool. So, well, first of all, congratulations on planning a second career is basically what I'm hearing, right?
Yes.
So the next person I want to talk to here today is a gentleman by the name of Joe Backus. And Joe is he's got a really cool company that he started and that he runs in St. Louis called BLA Studios. Joe Backus is the CEO and the founder. They're based in St. Louis, and his company does some really cool things. They do custom design. They fabricate and build really, really cool stuff out of a lot of different materials like steel and wood and concrete and stone. Basically, they have the experience and the background, the capability to take something from a sketch on a napkin and turn it into something real. And they have some pretty cool stuff that they've done that with. Plus, I also am impressed with the fact that they can take what most people look at as cast-offs, like old printing machines and things like that, and turn them into really cool things like furniture, which is really kind of awesome. So Joe, thank you for being here. I appreciate you taking some time out of your busy schedule.
Thank you, Ken, for everything you've done for us. Really, I appreciate it.
Well, I mean, it's great to have you here and to talk with you. It's kind of almost like a closing a loop here, because we haven't talked too much recently. But anyhow, so I had sent you some questions for you to think about, and one of those was of the 5 primary components of the value formula. There's vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, and execution, which we went through when you sat in on the workshop. Which of those do you think appealed to you most, or which one do you think you felt like was giving you the most kind of like value off the bat?
I mean, for us, like what I was thinking about a lot is I came from like not going to college, not really doing anything that is real business oriented, and just like not really understanding what's going on. I created a skill that I have, and I really needed to figure out a way to profit from that skill. And I started a business with a lot of my friends and stuff like that. So you got to kind of run into a lot of issues where it's like 4 of us who own this company, and there's a lot of roles that should be taken care of and stuff like that. But it's kind of turns into this tornado sometimes. So what we've been doing a lot is I really like the alignment of the value formula, where it's like what we've done a lot, where it's instead of having actual roles, not like set in stone roles, like you're this person, it's more of like responsibilities, which I really like. And I think that's what helps me out a lot is like I think a lot of us are more on the line of not, having a responsibility, achieving that responsibility and getting past it. And that has really helped our like communication of the company. It's not this kind of thing where who's the boss, who's in charge of this. It's more of like you have a project that you're in charge of. You are responsible for this, even though you have people that are also making sure that stuff is not going on. But I think that helped us out a lot, setting up a good authority system when we really don't have like an authority system the way our company's set up right now.
So that, I mean, that you're not alone in that. And this is the thing that I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they have a great idea, they have a skill like you do, and the folks that you work with that you brought onto your team. And that seems to kind of like be the focus, but yet you're right. There has to be a structure behind that. People have to kind of know that what they're responsible for and so on and so forth. So that's one of the things I think that, I kind of stress is that, approach this as kind of a model, have a vision, alignment, look for what you can leverage. And you're doing that, right, with different partners and so on, your own uniqueness. And I think that, you have that in spades with what you can do and what you've done. And then also the important aspect, which you really seem to stress, is that aspect of execution. So when the value formula, what do you feel makes it unique in its approach? Because I know you've probably been exposed to a lot of different things, and I know there's a lot of things that are out there. But what do you feel makes the value formula maybe unique or maybe more applicable in your situation?
Like I was saying before, like I come from a background like that. I had no business experience. I kind of started this trade that led to this point where I just felt like, I can be profitable by myself on this. And but I kind of spent my years of trying, maybe when I should have been learning how to, properly, know how to do things, I spent them on my trade. And I think that like the formula for me, it seems like a very like it's just when you see it, it just kind of makes sense. There's these like these years of doing these trial and errors from when I started of it, that where you kind of see when I did the seminar with you, that it's just like, oh, this is this is where this is supposed to go, and this is where this is supposed to go. So like doing that with you, it kind of cleared up everything that we were kind of like it's just like clearing up everything that we were trying to understand. It just kind of put pen to paper of what we were wanting to do. And it, like, what I really liked about it is it kind of like set set a focus on what we needed to do. You have a goal, and these are, these things are here. You have a leverage, you have a thing you need to execute. You have everything, and it's all there. We just didn't know how to set it up. And I feel like that this just kind of made everything seem very logical, and it made it really easy to understand of what should be important, what should your priorities be, what should you be going towards the future on stuff. And that's what I took a lot from it.
So I know that, shortly after you went through the workshop, the seminar, you had some major objectives that you set out to accomplish based on that, in our discussion during the workshop. Did it help you to focus? And then even more so, did it help you actually accomplish any of those big things that we talked about?
I mean, yes, like I think the big word is it focused us. Like that's like the big thing that I feel like we got from it is like it like in like when in your pamphlet, it's this big arrow of a focus leading to something. So it's really nice to like set up a goal, and then how to focus on there. Like we just recently, like our big goal that we were trying to do, we bought this giant CNC plasma cutter, which is a thing in our industry that's only gonna help us more. But it was a big purchase that we had to do. So there was a lot of like, this is our priority. Like, what do we need to do to get to this point? What do we need to do to make sure that once we buy this, it's used? What do we need to do to make sure that we were using this properly. Like a lot of that was like thought about in the same aspect of what your formula is like how do we like what is this, this is a big thing to buy, like when is this a proper time to like execute on it.
So the person I'm going to talk to here for a few minutes is a gentleman by the name of John Cullum. And John is the CEO and founder of Northcraft Analytics, which is a company whose mission is to bring to the next generation tools and management techniques that are used in the business to the IT organizations that build and nurture them. So, John, thank you again for being here today.
Great. Yep, it's my pleasure. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So what I have here is, there's a few questions I've been asking people, and I'll just, throw these questions out to you. And the first one was basically, within the value formula itself, there's 5 components. There's vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, and execution. There's also a discussion at the beginning of the book on what value is and doing more with less, that concept. And also at the end talks more about, synergy, everything working together. But of the components that we covered, those various things that we covered within the workshop that you attended, which of those kind of stood out to you, or which one did you feel appealed to you or your organization the most, or perhaps maybe provided the most value to your organization?
Right. No, that's a good question. It's certainly in multiple parts, right? It's a lot of the presentation in the beginning worked with us to talk about our vision, and we're very kind of focused on a specific place, and we know that the IT shop itself has brilliant people in it, but they haven't been exposed to a lot of the advanced management techniques, and they often don't get a lot of the same kind of tools that line of business gets. But I think the workshop really helped us try to boil that vision down and create a clearer message about it. The alignment around our operations, when we were talking about that as well. I would say we have a lot of marketing effort, but we don't necessarily have a lot of marketing focus. So trying to get alignment with specific customers, where they're looking, how to communicate that vision out to them, and why that vision is important to them, right? That's kind of a key thing for us. And I think the thing that really remained for me out of the workshop, not to jump to E, but the execution part about it, there was a lot of how to break down blocking and tackling. How do we actually get this out into the marketplace? What kind of tasks do we need to do? What objectives are we trying to set? And how do we work that into the meetings and structure those more effectively? And I think that the workshop and the book and the techniques really helped the organization focus on putting structure around, when we get together, what are we trying to achieve? Is this one of our objectives? How are we going to execute on it? And how do we get that done in an efficient manner or in a direct manner, which is often the same thing?
There are a lot of, as I kind of point out, there are a lot of things that are out there that people can, embrace and utilize to help them do things better. What was it that you felt with your exposure now to the value formula? What makes it unique in its approach, or what made it more effective to you, or what was it about it that appealed to you?
Right. So, excuse me. I'm exposed to, a lot of sort of general frameworks, and what becomes very difficult in those is to say, this framework works for your organization because, and a lot of the time, I think because those frameworks are not derived from people that have been out in the field, you get a lot of consultancy stuff, and, hey, I've been a consultant, it's no sin. But I think that this framework is clearly developed out of a deal of experience at large organizations, seeing the real kind of problems that people have in a practical, real world sense. You really get that kind of feel around that framework. And we just frankly found it more applicable and practical to, what we were actually doing in individual meetings, in how we want to structure ourselves. So, I mean, I think that that's the thing that stuck out to me as that's not what I typically get out of digging into a different way to structure your business, right? So I hope that gives you some idea of the question, but that was the most striking thing to me.
That's great. Thank you for that feedback. That is kind of in a sense, some of the other folks that we've been talking to, that's kind of there's a review of the book recently on Amazon that said, the book is easy to read, easy to understand, easy to apply, which was to me, that was the intent. That was, the goal that I was trying to get to, and it seems that has been received that way. So one of the things that that the value formula tries to help people do is to really kind of unveil what are those game changers, those wildly important goals, those big things that organizations really need to focus on to make sure they get done. Since the workshop, have you done some thought around that, or has that exposure helped you accomplish or at least focus on one or two of your highest priorities? And if so, how did you do that?
I would say, yeah, absolutely. Right. So, I think, for our particular organization, we have a lot of good content. We have a lot of good technology. And our really wildly important goal is how we're going to communicate that, and how are we going to touch all of the people specifically that are actually going to need this. It may not be wildly important for every organization, but it really got us to focus on, our outreach and building the infrastructure around, say, email marketing, LinkedIn campaigns, a lot of experimentation, implementing a CRM and getting kind of HubSpot going and structuring all that so that things can be automated. We're lean and mean, so it's everything that we do has to be able to be automated and repeated in order to reach out. We don't have enough people to touch everybody. And we've built up a lot of that infrastructure, I think, since we've met you. That for us has been our wildly important goal. And frankly, it's only been a few months. So, but we've made progress down that path by kind of focusing the efforts there.
That's outstanding. I appreciate that. So just to kind of wrap things up here, is there any other point about the value formula, or how you feel like may have impacted you and or your organization that you feel might be important to people who are attending this webinar?
What I would say is it's important to get the organization to look up and think abstractly and rally around strategic goals from time to time. It really kind of brings people together and energizes everyone. The danger in that is when you have a bad experience with one of those seminars, that it can suck the energy out and start a vicious cycle of not devoting your energy to that. In the kind of value formula, but in the webinar, what we really, I think, is going to be powerful is it gets people in that you feel like you've had a productive time in the management experience, thinking, getting yourself back into, I'm going to devote myself to the science of management, which is, a lot of the reason that we all got into this in the first place is, there are revolutionary thoughts out there. When we bring those out to people, it can change an organization of tens of thousands of people. Get back in touch with that, right? And, it really helps you take that energy back into the work that you do. So, and I think, that experience was very much what we had in the webinar.
So I had the pleasure of working with Corey Kite several years ago when he was the leader within the Penn State University's outreach, analytics, and reporting team. And after several very well-deserved promotions at Penn State, he is now currently the data manager there. However, he has recently taken a new position with Solaris Healthcare as their analytics manager. And Solaris Health is not Solaris Healthcare, Solaris Health Partners. And they are a national healthcare platform committed to enhancing access to specialty healthcare and continually improving patient outcomes. So, Corey, again, welcome and thank you.
Thank you for having me, Ken.
Absolutely. So the first question I was going to ask you is, as you look at the value formula, the vision, alignment, leverage, uniqueness, and execution, which of those five do you feel appealed to you or your organization the most, or perhaps maybe another way of looking at it, which one do you feel has given you the most value or the most benefit?
Sure. So thinking through the different components of the value formula, I really feel like uniqueness really stands out to me. It comes to mind most often as I'm just working in everyday life is I find myself from time to time thinking like what does someone bring to the team, and how that can have such a huge impact for the group, that maybe it's a project or just a team dynamic. What is unique about each person on the group? And so I think having those different ways of thinking, or just a variety of backgrounds and expertise in a group or a team, is really valuable to conversations that I'm part of. And I've seen firsthand how uniqueness can help better understand where our team fits within an organization, and very importantly, how others perceive us as a group.
Very, very good. That actually, when you the perspective I think that you're taking there with the uniqueness, in addition to the unique value that the organization, the team that you're part of or that you lead is providing, but also the individual uniqueness of each team member and the special value, the diversity that they bring to the organization, to the team, which is a great way of applying that idea as well. So there are a lot of things out there, a lot of different models and frameworks and things like that. What do you feel, based on your experience with the value formula, makes it unique? And what caused it to appeal to you, for you to be able to, as you said, kind of be part of how you think and how do you do business?
Sure. So what makes the value formula unique for me, and what makes it effective for me, is it's simple. Very easy answer, I guess, for that one. It's simple. It's quick to understand. And from my experience, it was very fast to implement. And as long as everyone's on board, it's very fast to implement. At least it was for us. And something that really stands out to me is the many stories that you share, Ken, and how they apply so directly to the concepts. They really help build that comprehension when you're working through it. And so to me, it's just that the value formula just makes sense.
That I appreciate that feedback. There was a review recently from a young lady who had read the book, and she wrote a review and put it on Amazon. And it was almost as if she kind of understood what my purpose was to begin with in writing the book and getting it published. And the title of her review was "Easy to Read, Easy to Understand, Easy to Apply." And that you've kind of gone to the heart of that really was the intention. I mean, I never set out to make something convoluted or difficult, but something that, that did make sense and that did, have a pretty solid structure behind it. So I appreciate that observation. And I think that is something that I was at a conversation recently with a lady I used to work with at Hewlett Packard, and she said that she had been using another kind of methodology to help people create their vision statement. And she said, but it had something like 35 questions. She said it was kind of convoluted. So she said that she really liked the fact that my advice was only about 8 to 10 questions that were more kind of to the point. So again, that was part of the intention, was to make it simple. So I appreciate that observation and that response. So along the way, did you find that the value formula and the concepts, the principles that are kind of outlined there, did they help you focus on or accomplish one of your highest priority goals along the way, and continue to do that perhaps, and maybe give an example of that, or how that worked?
Sure. So it's been a while since the team that I worked with implemented the value formula. So some of the the experiences that we had do go back a little bit. But what we found, but what we used the value formula for was to focus on things that were within our control. So starting small and building out from there. So if we could focus on very specific things that helped us today, that helped us put us in a better position so that we could mature as a group and expand what capabilities we had. So that way we could focus on like those bigger items and those bigger picture things that we really wanted to do, but we just couldn't do right now. And so helping us focus on things that we had control over. And so one of those steps that we did very early on was defining like our wildly important goals. And so if we define what those wildly important goals for the team were, that helped us give us direction for the entire year, because we could apply back to priorities that we had. Maybe we had competing priorities at the time. So we could say, well, this one doesn't align to our important goals, but this one does. So that's what we're going to work on. As a team, we can decide that. And as an individual on the team, you could actually prioritize your work based on that. And you had the authority to do that as a team member. And that was really important, is it gave people the authority and control over the work that they were prioritizing. And so I remember early on, an example was when we were setting these goals, Ken was very adamant that we had to keep it to 2, but we ended up with 3. So our first year we had 3, but I think every year after that we applied the 2 method. So that was a good example. But each year, staff had that input into what those wildly important goals were for us. And so I think that's really why it was so effective for us as a group and really helped us accomplish our priorities.
That's outstanding. I remember, think back to when, we were really working closely together and yeah, I mean, and I still see, I have a friend of mine who was an executive, and I was talking to him and I said, how many goals do you have set for yourself for next year? And he said 10. And I said, how many do you expect to accomplish? He said, maybe a couple. I said, then get rid of 8 of them. It's like we tend to want to do a whole lot. Achievers want to achieve, but it really takes discipline to focus down on those 1 or 2 or maybe 3, wildly important goals, the things that make all the big difference. So yeah, I appreciate that. There does seem to be the tendency to give some pushback, right? Like it was squeeze one more in there. No, there's only so much bandwidth. So is there any other point about the value formula or your experience with it that you think might be important to people who are going to be watching this and attending this webinar?
Sure. So I would say start with what you know. Don't try to or keep it simple. Don't try to be perfect with everything, because you're going to make mistakes. You're not going to know where to go for some of these things. So try to start with just what you know. And a quote that I hear, that I've heard from colleagues numerous times over the years is, don't let perfect get in the way of good enough. Sometimes good enough is what you need, and perfecting something isn't always going to be beneficial, because then you may spend too much time or resources on whatever it is you're trying to do. And I would just say communication is extremely important. Being humble and giving grace to people. Not everyone's going to be at the same point of where you're at today and whatever journey you're going through. And so communicating that it's okay not to be at the same place, but being honest and open and being humble about it is important.
So great conversations. It was really eye-opening to me as the author of the value formula and the facilitator of the workshops to hear some of these phenomenal responses to these questions. And again, I cannot thank enough the individuals who took their time out of their busy schedules to be available to answer those questions, to be here today, to answer questions for the folks here as well. So just as an FYI, we are going to make the full interviews available to you. The links for them will be available in the email for each as a recording for each panelist. So I'm inviting the panelists to kind of come on here as we wrap up today. for any Q&A. So thank you, TJ and John and Joe and Corey and Jim. Appreciate your being here. So one of the things I was going to maybe just kind of like as we kind of wrap up, first of all, see if there's any questions that might have come in. I don't see anything specifically here, but and there's Ed as well. So thank you, Ed. Let me see. So one of the things I was going to see is if anybody has any maybe specific feedback that they might want to provide. We could either like maybe do a round robin here, or perhaps, kind of like I can maybe point to people. I feel like, I'm in the Brady Bunch here. That won't mean anything to a lot of people, but so Tammy, TJ, is there anything specifically that you might add because this is the first time you've heard everybody else's responses too, right? So what might you add? Don't forget to unmute.
Based on listening to everyone, I think it's very, very well covered, and it's so amazing to have all these diverse views and to hear what people have done. I don't think I can add anything on top of an already great recording of these interviews.
All right. Thank you. So just to kind of maybe go this direction now, John, any thoughts that you might want to share here as we kind of like wrap things up? Just, kind of something.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed. Yeah. Can you hear me okay, Ken?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I really enjoyed hearing everybody's interactions with the value framework. I think that it resonated with our own as well. And, that kind of idea. I love the concept of, get your 2 important goals. Don't give me a list of 10. That is sort of the, what you pick up managerially and, by applying certain methodologies and listening to other people. Is focusing on what the most important goals are. That greatly increases the chances of them being achieved. And, the other things will come. It's priorities. Mm-hmm. And, a lot of that is communicated through the methodology, but it's echoed by, top flight managers here on this too. So just nice to hear. Really nice to hear.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'll jump down.
Sorry, Ken. I mean, there was a question.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Came up, and it was where did the value formula come from? I mean, clearly it's one of those things. I mean, it wasn't just a eureka moment. I mean, can you just give us a little bit of insight as to exactly what was behind the value formula?
Yeah, it was. I have no idea where it came from. In all honesty, over the years, I mean, obviously you can tell by the gray hair and so on that I had a lot of experience with a lot of different companies and a lot of different positions, managerial positions, frontline positions, some sales and pre-sales. And I noticed by just working with all these and within these companies, there are some things that seem to work, and there are some things that just didn't seem to work at all. So it was really kind of like, to observe and observe what those things were, and kind of, things stick to you over the years. So that was probably the first part. And then a lot of research that once I started thinking about, actually capturing these ideas and putting down, I wanted to validate it with research. What have other people said? What have other people done? And then there was a few flashes of inspiration. The model itself, the first model was pretty rudimentary with some squares and some rectangles on the side. And I showed that to my son, who's in marketing, a few years ago, when I was putting this together, and he looked at it and he goes, "That's pretty lame, Dad." And I thought, okay, thank you. But what it did was it motivated me to come up with something that really made more sense. And the structure of the vision, the alignment with an arrow, the 2 things that support that, and then execution as a foundation and as holding it together, really kind of came out of that challenge to really communicate that. So a lot of research, a little bit of inspiration, and probably a good smattering of common sense as well, I think might have been part of that. But thank you for that question, Bhupinder. Thank you.
Well, I think there is a follow-on question. I'm just looking at it. There's just a couple of questions that have come up, and the next one was in terms of the organization, because we've had quite an assorted set of people coming on board with different backgrounds. Mm-hmm. So what exactly is the type of organization that the value formula actually fits in your opinion?
I mean, I can give my opinion, and I can open that up to other people as well. But there were some, I mean, one of the things I noticed as I was talking to the various panelists here is that there were some commonalities. One of the things was they were looking for something that was simple. There's like I said, there's a lot of guidance out there, but sometimes, you know, as I read the different books and things like that, they spend an entire book talking about one relatively simple concept that, you know, that can be maybe more succinct in how it's approached. But, you know, is there anybody that on the panel that might maybe provide their insight as to like the type of organization that might benefit from the guidance? I might turn to Joe. Go ahead, Joe. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, like in my panel before that was on here, I think it simplifies a lot of stuff trying to get into a business, like just understanding where to start and how to manage people properly. I think that's a lot of stuff that I got from it, is how to be more of like a leader to a company, and to how to talk to people and see if they are responsible enough to have them be also leaders of your company, which I appreciate. It's kind of a good test on people that you're thinking about hiring, what their responsibilities are, and how motivated are they to work with you and stuff like that, which I got from it.
Excellent. Thank you. Any other thoughts?
Joe, I have to agree with you on that.
Ed's got, yeah, Ed, go ahead.
Yeah, Joe, I agree with you on that. One of the things is it's irrespective of the person in the organization, as everybody should be in the same boat in regards to fresh eyes and wise eyes, and is not a title perspective as it is an engagement perspective. How do you get everyone engaged and understand, you know, where the boat should be going and who and what their roles should be, and how do they line up with each other? I think it's important to have what I call two up, two down, two left, two right, which is wherever you are in the organization, you should know 2 levels up what they do. And are you aligned? You should know also 2 levels down and 2 levels to the left. The more you're integrated with that kind of methodology, as I call 2 up, it allows the team to move very quickly, to move as one, think as one, and act as one. And this is where Colin Davis's practices come in, which is how do you keep that going? Because some people will fall, some people will falter. And this is where coaching really makes a big difference, is to, you know, step it up, get the best practices, and get your leaders up and running.
Yeah. One of the things that I am a proponent of, and actually it is part of the workshop, is what I call active accountability, where, you know, one of the things I found in my particular experience in business is when I was being held accountable for results, I was much more likely to accomplish those things than if I just kind of, like, you know, was off on my own and wasn't really held accountable. And holding ourselves accountable, holding other people accountable is, I think, a key aspect of it. And that's one of the things I know that Colin, in his consulting, is that he regularly works with and talks with his clients and holds them accountable and makes them realize, you know, that this isn't going to happen by itself. It does take that level of accountability. So, Colin, I don't know if you want to add any additional insight to that.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's exactly along the lines of what I was thinking about. In fact, there's various statistics, of course, but something like 97% of consulting engagements end in non-engagement, which is kind of frightening considering the amount of money that's put into consulting. And it was really refreshing to hear when I heard, you know, the recordings, and I got to sit in a few of the interviews. In fact, Alan asked me, what do you think, you know, afterwards? And I thought, the folks on here today are really some great managers, some great leaders who knew how to drive this through the organization. And that's impressive that there was real execution on it. So, I mean, kudos to you guys for sure. And yeah, I mean, I guess that was actually a question I wanted to ask. How, and anyone here, I'd love to hear, how did you make sure that these conversations took place? How did you make sure that execution happened? How did you champion the value formula?
I think for that, great question. I think I'm going to point to Jim and then maybe to Corey, since they, number one, they haven't had a chance to give their input yet. But number two, I think they're maybe uniquely position to be able to answer that question. So Jim, go ahead. Oh, for some reason I still can't hear you. No. Got it. Is that working? No. So sorry, Jim. I know you have something really important to say. So why don't we go to Corey while you maybe figure out the technical issue there, Jim? Go ahead, Corey.
Sure. Yeah. So I think a big part of like the championing of the value formula in the organization, it really comes down to having those key people. And so it wasn't just me being the voice of it. There was a few others in the group kind of championing that directive and really promoting the possibilities that we could have. I remember an early on exercise we did is what makes a good day versus bad day for you here at work. And it was very enlightening because there's some obvious things like, yeah, that's of course a bad day when something doesn't work the way it's supposed to. But when things do, that's a great day. So it was really eye-opening. And that's kind of how we fed off of that. Like we built up the energy at first to kind of understand what's going to motivate the people to engage, because that's a big part of it. We needed engagement because we couldn't just force this. It had to happen naturally. And so that was a big part of it. And then kind of having the leadership support was a big part of it. But then also keeping it going, because a lot of these things, it's very early on, like a lot of people are motivated, but how do you keep that going? And so we had various check-ins. Basically every month, there's one or two things that we knew we wanted to do this month. So we dedicated time and resources to like have those sessions and conversations. So we made it a priority just in our everyday work. And I think that's really what helped us drive the kind of the implementation of the value formula.
Corey, when you had those sessions, anybody had the same equal, let's say, ability to voice comments and perspectives and the like, right? So it wasn't actually a kind of a titled leader leading that, right?
Correct. So I wasn't even the director of the team at the time. I was one of the managers on the teams, and I was a brand new manager at the time. So like I was empowered to do that on behalf of the team. And so the other staff saw that, and like even though they weren't like the manager or the director of the team, they felt engaged and they felt able to express their opinions and views, even when there were negative views. Like that was okay, and that was a safe space for them to do that.
Yeah, in a lot of my talks, when I talk about leadership, right, I actually talk about the will to fight, right? And that means you have to have faith in the cause, which is purpose. You have to have faith in leaders, which is trust. And you have to have faith in your company, which drives the passion. So I think that kind of, capability and, sort of mindfulness for the team is really critical.
Yeah, very important.
Absolutely. So Jim, are you able to unmute now, or do we still have an issue there? Yeah, I'm not really sure what's going on. Of all the people here, Jim probably has the most important thing to say. That's always the way it works. But this is great. This format here, I know we need to wrap up here because we do want to make sure we respect the people's time that are dedicated to watch this. But this panel here, I mean, this would be great to pull this together and maybe just do something like this. With us and maybe a couple other folks or whatever, but we'll maybe look at that as a follow-on. But anyway, so I've got a couple of slides here to kind of wrap up today. If you'd like to get copies of the book or a copy of the book or whatever, or if you're open to the idea of conducting a workshop with your leadership team, or perhaps have me come in and just kind of talk about at a high level what the value formula is and what it represents and what it can do for your organization. Don't hesitate to contact us. So the best way is through this email here, sales@edifyitsm.com. We'll get back to you quickly and talk about any details that you want to talk about. But it's been very eye-opening for me as the author of the book, and it kind of like with the conduit that this stuff came through, to hear the responses and the questions that we asked. And again, people point out the diversity of the folks here and their where they're coming from and where their situation was. But I again want to express my heartfelt appreciation to TJ and John and Joe and Corey and Jim Also Ed and Colin for being here today, and also to Alan McCoy for helping pull this thing together. So with that, I think that's probably the last slide that we have here. Let's wrap things up. I'll wish you all the best. We've got, some holidays coming up, so enjoy those with friends and family, and hopefully we'll be in touch soon. Thank you.
Thank you.